Hi guys, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and I've got a couple of emails from a viewer that has what I call a rectangular tube machine, and he wants to know how to adjust the belt on the mower deck. Well, this is the only one of these that I have right now, and it's stripped down because I wanted to get the parts off of it. If you can see, that is the front end's there, but the steering wheel, tie rods, kingpins, everything's gone out of it except for these two pieces of frame that I was going to cut up and get rid of, but I guess I'm glad I kept them just for this video. Now there are several different styles of machines. You can see I got a bunch of them sitting around here. It's starting to look like a repair shop, and they all adjust the belt a little bit different. But first I want to give a shout out to a special viewer that I have heard is watching all of my videos, probably because she's sitting home and bored, but we won't discuss that. Her name is Sadie. Hello Sadie, I'm glad you're watching. And a little birdie told me that she enjoys just sitting and watching these videos. So tell a friend or two and subscribe. I can use the subscribers. So thank you for that, dear. She is the daughter of the secretary at the shop, and we kind of all adopted her as granddaughter, and her brother is a grandson. And whenever they show up, we make sure we have candy and cookies and pop and whatever we can give them that their mother don't want. Hey, you gotta spoil the kids when they're little. What the heck? Now, getting back to this snapper, there are several different machines as far as how they adjust and what you have to do to them. This is an old one of mine. If I can get it set here so you can see it. I don't know what's the best picture, tell you the truth. Blow that up a little bit. This is an old style, and this thing here is the frame that's a big spring that the seat attaches to. And this is, get these names right, these bushings in here are called the main tube grommet. This is on the machines that are probably 25 years old, and they've gotten away from them because they didn't have any bearing surface to speak of. And it's right, this is the clamp that you have to loosen so you can pull the tube out. And this surface here, which is about a 1/2 inch wide, and back here, which is about a 1/2 inch wide, is where the grommets go in. Now this was a poor design because of the lack of surface area. There's a little bit better picture, I guess, that allowed this tube to turn. And these were only about a 1/2 inch wide. I don't have any laying around because they're for such an old machine. They wore through very easily. And then once you wore through the grommet, or the plastic, you started eating into the frame of the machine. And that was not repairable unless you had somebody that could weld or even manufacture a piece of curved steel to place in there and weld it in place. So they got away from them, and they went to the tube style with a pilot bushing inside, and that's the ones that always seem to rust up and you can't break them loose. Well, this machine And like I said, this is the only one I've got. Personally, I don't like the rectangular tube machines because they are way harder to work on than the round tube ones are. And I'll show you over there. Now this is the clamp that clamps around the tube that holds the tension on the mower deck belt. To adjust this one, I had a viewer who says, I can't figure out how to do it. Well, when you stand the machine up, your mower deck is in the way and you can't see this. But this is what's on the bottom of your rectangular tube. There are some instructions in there to drop the mower deck down to get to this clamp. But these are your main tube bushings, are what they call these. And again, very poor design. Let me move this up here. If you look close enough, you can see the only part that's actually bearing in these supports is about a ½ an inch again. This thing is huge, it's big, but it doesn't do anything for the machine on turning. All that does is, here's your clamp. It keeps the clamp centered between here and it keeps the frame where you want it. Now to tighten the belt up on this, you have to loosen this clamp and you can slide the frame apart. Either out to tighten the belt or you slide it in. And this doesn't move all that great, I'll tell you. These are very stiff. You don't want to go back in. There it goes. And then you tighten your clamp back up to hold this in the right position once you get your belt tightened. Now these clamps control the pivot on the front end. And same with this one. When you clamp this around the tube, this is what stops the front end from just spinning around in circles, which would be really bad if you were going across your yard. And this one, I don't know if I can, let me try to slide this thing out of here. Like I said, it is extremely stiff. There we go. Now you can see there's a difference between the rectangular tube clamp, which has flats on it, and it's thin up here for clearance, because this one will not fit in there. It's too wide. These flats is what stops this thing from pivoting too far, and which may allow your machine to roll over. What happens is these flats hit on the top of this tube and it stops it from turning. The other machines, I have a few of them around here. Now that first picture I showed you is on my 33-inch that's out in my old garage that I use all the time. And that is this style of clamp, along with all the rest of these. Let me see if I can wiggle you over here. And they all adjust a little differently. Oh, let's see. Let's look at this one. I'll vibrate you around a little bit. I'm sorry about that. I don't have a cameraman. Now this is the style on this machine. It has a steel bar. Let me see if I can move you a little bit. It has a steel bar that clamps to the frame. Maybe I can come over here. It's just a flat steel bar, and it goes around the frame, around this tube, and the clamp is on each side of this piece of steel. So when you have your machine standing up and you have the front assembly, so it's in the center, your clamp has to be square with the bottom of the frame. Because when this thing turns, the clamp hits on the corner of this piece of steel, and that's what stops it from pivoting. And again, on this machine, to adjust the belt, you want to have it sitting on all 4 tires. You loosen this nut on this side, you loosen this nut up, and you pull the tube out, and you just tighten the clamp back up. I usually have a 1-inch gap between the closest point on the belt. And I'll show you, I got a catalog over here. Now this style of machine, this one's a little bit different yet. Get you where you can see. This has a steel plate that's welded to the tube. There's a pin sticking out of this case. It's welded on there. And there's a slot in this steel plate, and that is what stops this from turning too far. Only lets it turn a recommended distance. Now, to stretch this frame out, they sell these little spacers. You can buy these, I get them from partstree.com, or you can just make your own, or you can take this clip out. I don't know, this has never been apart. You can take these washers off. You can tell they're still painted in one lump. They've never been broke apart. You can lift this tube up and put a couple washers behind this plate, keeping it from going back down. That will adjust your belt. Or you can buy these things, and you don't have to do anything with the wiring. When this is sitting on its tires, you take this hairpin out, you take your washers off, you pull this frame out a little bit, and because this is slotted, you just slide this between the steel plate and the frame, and it slides around the post and this pin at the same time. I hope you can see this, and it snaps into place. Then you push your frame back down so this is all tight, and you put your washers. You'll have to take one washer off to make up for the distance that you've pulled this out. If you put 2 shims in, you'd have to take 2 washers off, and so on. But at least doing it this way, it's not quite as bad as them clamps. But some of them clamps, you get them apart, or you try to take the bolt out, it's hard to slide this tube because the clamp is crushed around the tube. Somehow you have to get something in there and spread that open so it will slide easier. And let's go back over here. And like I said, most all of them take this style of clamp, except for the rectangular tube. They need this style. And that's about it. These things, these are called your main tube bushings. The little ones are about, well, they're this diameter, and they're only about that big, about a 1/2 inch wide, and them are grommets is what they call them, and they never seem to hold up well. The pilot bushings, they're almost as long as that tube is, but they tend to, because they're inside like that, they tend to freeze up, and they're a bugger to get apart. I have a video that shows how to disassemble one once it's rusted up. but it's a lot of work, and you will not save it. You have to heat it with a torch, and you literally melt the bushing out, and so you can pull the machine apart. Then you have to scrape all that stuff off and put on a new pilot bushing. But this is the book for this machine, and in here it will show you what I mean about the distance between the belt. Now, if you drop your mower deck all the way down, you got to take your black plastic cover off, and you'll see the pulleys. This is the spindle pulley up here, and this is the drive disc on the back of the engine, and this is your idler pulley. What you want to do is engage your mower deck. Now this is with the engine off. You engage the mower deck and hold it somehow. Put a clamp on the pedal that your feet go on to keep it engaged. Then you loosen this clamp up and you pull on the front end and extend it till you have an inch between where the idler pulley is and the other belt. This one says 1 inch to 1.5 inches. That's on this machine. Most of them will say 1 inch to 1.25 inches. I usually try to pull them down to about 1 inch. The bracket that the lever that you pull up to engage your deck has a spring between that and the idler pulley. So if you have the belt a little too tight, it's not really going to hurt because you have that spring in there that's going to give it a little slack. I have this machine, that one, I had to bring in and work on because I tried to tighten the belt. I got these to resell, and I couldn't. I could not pull the machine apart, but it still pivoted, so I didn't think it was froze up. But what had happened is the pilot bushing froze to the tube, and the pilot bushing would be sitting back here, and it has a lip on it that rubs up against here. So this does not move when you're pulling your tube out to tighten your belt. And because the pilot bushing was froze to the tube, I couldn't pull it out because it was hitting the back of the clamp. And the clamp is captured inside of here on that steel plate. So I had to bring it in here and tear it all apart. I did manage to get the pilot bushing broke loose from the tube without hurting it. After I got it apart, I let it soak a couple of days with some PB Blaster in there, and it popped right loose. I polished the shaft up, I greased everything with anti-seize, and put it back together. All I got to do is I'm waiting for spring to come because we got a little bit of snow this morning, and get the deck back on this thing, get it out and try it again, make sure everything works before I sell it. So when I sell these machines, I give them a 30-day warranty with it and make sure that they're happy and everything works. So that's how you adjust the belt on a rectangular tube machine. It's hid up inside of here where it's not obvious that it's there like the round tube machines are. I like the round tube machines much better than these. They're so much easier to work on, and there's a lot less stuff to work on. Everything goes up through the tube on this one. Your throttle control, all your wires, your cables. It's just a lot of stuff packed inside of this little pipe that the machine pivots on. So I hope I've answered your question. He didn't leave his name, so I don't really know who he was or his address. His I don't know what you would call it. It's not his email, but all I see here it says Freebird1, and that's all I know him by. So I hope that answered your question. I'm a little behind on emails. I've always tried to answer them the day I get them, but right now, because of everybody being home, apparently everybody is working on their snappers, and I'm getting a huge amount of emails. But I'm trying to answer them as quickly as I can and give them enough time and explanation to solve their issues without just blowing them off. So please be patient. I am working on all of them, and as I did this one, I think this one came in about 20 hours ago, 16 hours ago, 17 hours ago. He sent me 3 of them. That's very unusual that it takes me that long to answer an email. But I felt this one actually needed a video because it'd be awful hard to tell him what to do in an email. So I hope this helps out more than just him. I hope this helps out a lot of people on the confusion of tightening up your mower deck belt. And please subscribe. I need your help to keep this channel going. So work safe, have fun, and keep on snapping. And Sadie, hopefully we get back to work. I'll see you soon, honey. Bye-bye.